Good morning on this Sunday, May 5th, and welcome to the Georgia Gang. Pro-Palestinian protesters show up at college campuses across Georgia, several of them arrested as Governor Brian Kemp offers a stern warning. Early voting is underway in key races, including for DeKalb County Sheriff and DeKalb CEO. Also, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is upping her fight to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson. Melita, Phil, and Janelle are all here. Alicia Thomas-Searcy is back filling in for Theron. Welcome back. The debate and discussion begin right now.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
Students at colleges across Metro Atlanta and beyond protest in support of an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Activist groups at Emory, along with the University of Georgia and Kennesaw State University, held walkouts.
Go to the school! I have a right to be here!
Senior Madeline Gordon is one of dozens of protesters arrested on Emory's campus over the last few days.
Really heartbroken to see what should be one of the most educated places in America use violent force against students.
Similar protests took place at other nearby colleges, including SCAD, Atlanta, and also Kennesaw State. Authorities have arrested some non-students, including this man, Derek Zika, whom Emory police say was carrying knives and pepper spray.
We want justice, you say how? Stop bombing Gaza now!
Some students at Wednesday's walkout say their focus is the Palestinian people suffering in Gaza and making sure university dollars are not tied to genocide.
It's an entire people group that are essentially being wiped off the face of the planet. To me, that should be really intuitive. Genocide is bad. I want to do what I can to keep that from continuing.
In Athens, police arrested numerous protesters after they set up an encampment at the university's North Campus. They called for UGA to divest from Israel and for a ceasefire in the war between Israel and Hamas. Now, UGA released a statement saying after multiple warnings that the protesters would be arrested for trespass if they did not comply with our policies. UGA police were left with no choice but to arrest those who refused to comply. Melita, to you first this week for your reactions to all of these protests. Also, at UGA, several students were not only arrested, but they were also suspended.
Yes. Well, first off, we're a nation founded on protest, and while trespassing, vandalism, and the destruction of private property are no longer, and for good reasons, deemed acceptable forms of protest, we have to remember that the Boston Tea Party involved all three. And what we have here is public universities have a different standard for access than the private universities like Emory and Morehouse. And we also need to remember in our nation's history that the students who joined the civil rights movement, who protested against the Vietnam War, and who spoke up for an end to apartheid in South Africa were all on the correct side of the arc of the moral universe bending towards justice. And so I'm not sure that college administrators have handled all of these protests properly, necessarily. And the other thing that I think is that it's very important for them to figure it out before the graduation season is in full gear, which starts this weekend. Because the students graduating this year are the same students who, because of COVID, didn't get to have senior proms and high school graduations when they graduated. And the protests of the few should not mar the enjoyment of the families of the many who are celebrating an accomplishment.
Well, Janelle, Melita mentioned, we're a nation founded on protests, but we also have laws.
Absolutely.
And order. So where's the balance here?
I agree. And all of those protests, in most cases, there was some peaceful protesting. And I think there's a major difference between protesting and disrupting. I feel like this is the area where, as Republicans and Democrats, we can unite. I think we all understand that there is a difference between standing your ground, speaking your truth, or whatever you feel is, how you feel, but making sure that you're not affecting other students from being able to learn, from being able to go to class. You have these areas that I feel that they should have. You give them a designated area, let them protest. But the moment you start destroying property, you have trash all over the place, it's just disgusting, it's violent, you're impacting other students' ability to go to school, that's when it becomes a major, major problem. And these individuals, what I'm confused about is if you're doing this on behalf of the children or the individuals who are being impacted due to the war and that are Palestinian, why are you not in Gaza? You know, like, why are you not trying to fly over to the Middle East and hell, why are you not packaging up items that you can mail to them and baby diapers or whatever, if that's what you want to do? Now, I'm in support of Israel. I think that what Israel's doing is the right thing to do. You defend your land. However, I don't think that we have to have a all or nothing response. I don't think we should lean on one side or the other. There's a middle ground. Give them a place to protest. The moment you violate whatever those restrictions are, you need to leave.
Alicia, I think it's also disturbing seeing some of these protesters not allowing Jewish kids, I call them kids, I know they're young adults, but to go to, like, preventing them from going to class. That's just disturbing.
It is, and I think it's important to note that different things are happening on different campuses, that there are people on both sides of this issue who are participating in these protests. What concerns me, I think to everyone's point, we all want to support the right for free speech. We want students to be able to peacefully protest. I'm from the Dr. King School of Thought, where you protest peacefully in a non-violent way. I certainly, when I was young, participated in a number of marches and protests. What I don't get is, for young people in particular who are participating in this, you are protesting against violence, but you're being violent. Right. Spitting in the face of a police officer is absolutely unacceptable. And this is not the way you're going to get your message out. If you are trying to stop violence, if you're trying to send a message about peace in the world, you don't do it with violence. There's no doubt, to Melita's point, that young people have always been the conscience of our country. That their protesting, our protesting, has led to changes in civil rights and human rights and women's rights. That needs to continue. But you must do it in a way that is peaceful, that protects the lives of people. One thing that I want to say that my Republican friends are not going to appreciate, though, I don't like what UGA has done. The students at UGA, according to the articles, have all been peaceful. They have not erected any violence, but they have been suspended. And so there's this email that went out to students who were participating in this. Some of them were arrested. They got the email while in jail and had 5 minutes to respond to this email to defend themselves or face suspension. That is a problem for me. You can't say on one hand that you got an ex-president who, because of his words, caused an entire riot at the Capitol in D.C. and caused the death of 6 people in terms of the insurrection, and call that free speech. But then you have students who are non-violently, peacefully protesting at a Georgia university and be suspended and face not being able to get, not able to graduate. That's a problem for me.
I think they are disrupting things for students. I mean, it's finals week. There's a lot going on, and they're not allowing some students to get to classes. So there's some issues there, Phil.
Well, I agree with you. They're occupying territory on a campus, and Lori's right. It's outrageous. It's against the law. And, you know, Lori, thank you for pointing out the rule of law in this country. That's why we have an American republic after the American Revolution. It's a cornerstone of Western civilization. And sadly, but we all ought to be aware of this, this is an organized effort by the hard left, the anarchists, the communists. They have hijacked what, yes, I'm sure there are sincere people that are concerned about the Palestinian people in Gaza. But these aren't students who have shields and gas masks and helmets and weapons, and even if they're vandalizing things and even occupying with tents. I think the university system at Georgia and the governor and the regents have done the right thing. I think these students ought to be, if not suspended, expelled. This is not a place where you do that. Yes, there are free speech zones. We're all in favor of that. But this has gone way beyond what's going on with free speech.
And Melita, Governor Kemp, was adamant, saying he's not going to allow Georgia to become the next Columbia University. And to Phil's point too, the protesters here in Atlanta, we saw it happen with the Atlanta Police Training Facility. There were people who legitimately were against this facility who peacefully protested, but it was the violent folks who really ruined it for the other side.
Well, that's very true. And I think all movements have people who carry that movement too far. And the other thing is that Republicans in Congress, and to a degree here in the state, are seizing on the campus protest to give themselves a talking point that they otherwise would not have during a contentious election cycle.
Janelle?
Yeah, I attended a conference recently, Run to Win conference, and shout out to Cole Musio with Frontline, but we had a breakout session. They talked about the difference between like the worldview and the biblical view. Now, while this is not a spiritual thing, but there is a different perspective that's happening right now. Like these kids have a totally different mindset. And then I say kids, but there are a lot of adults that's mixed in there too, which is a little weird to me. Some of these people are not even college students. I don't know what's going on with that other than just trying to create chaos. But I think it's important that us who understands this, that we communicate with compassion, because when you start saying things like they're dumb, you know, they're stupid, they don't know what they're doing, we don't want to listen, I think you turn everyone off, and then you don't come to a solution. So we got to direct these students back to purpose and off of themselves.
Well, Alicia, what about good trouble?
It's important. As Melita said, our nation was built on getting into good trouble.
What's
Again,
the definition of that? What is the
it
definition?
Is peacefully protesting, using your First Amendment right to speak against injustice.
Then this isn't good trouble. Vandalism, occupying property.
Let me say this. I agree that some people have taken it too far. And I think all of us are in agreement that violence of any kind is unacceptable. No one is saying that. But you absolutely have to have a space for young people or anybody to speak up and speak against what they believe is injustice. I will agree with you, particularly looking at Emory. You know, it was the Stop Cop City people, it was the Foresters, all these other folks that had nothing to do with Palestine or Israel, who kind of took over Emory's campus, then got students and professors involved. Yes, police officers from Emory, from Atlanta, and the state all asked them many, many times to leave. They did not do that. Here's the thing, when you peacefully protest, you understand that some of you are going to go to jail. That's a part of the process. That I don't have a problem with. It's the people who got violent, who punched a state trooper in the face. Those are the people that are problematic, that cannot be here. That's not good trouble.
Right.
That's criminal.
They were doing that during the BLM, and they were calling it good trouble. Remember? When
I
they were spitting on police officers back then,
trouble.
and they called it good trouble.
And John Lewis, Dr. King, Joseph Lowry, none of our civil rights leaders would agree with that action.
Some of these people may not know what you're talking about. You know, I'm sure you're sincere, but good trouble is really going to cause trouble. And because it is hijacked by the extremists. Good trouble is
exactly what it is.
Well,
you're
it's
supposed
hijacked,
to cause
but you're
trouble
hijacked
so that
by
you
the
can call
extremists.
action to these issues.
We'll agree to disagree on this.
How about that?
We're going to move on. Up next, early voting is underway. A discussion of some of the more high-profile races next.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Email them at georgiagang@foxtv.com.
Early voting is underway across Georgia for the May 21st primary. One of the key races, Fulton County Sheriff, where incumbent Pat Labatt is trying to fend off 4 challengers. Phil, does he deserve another term? Has he done enough to start fixing all of these problems at the jail?
Sheriff Labatt inherited a mess. Let's start with that. And I think that some mistakes have been made by him, especially in contracting, but I think he deserves re-election. I think that the other opponents are kind of scary. I don't know if they're for law and order. Actually, they're very ultra-liberal, and some of them don't even understand the management of a department. So I would like to give the sheriff another chance.
Alicia.
I've seen some polling where it looks like the sheriff is going to be fine. What I appreciate is that he's showing up to debates, he's having these conversations, and I think it's going to hopefully force him to think about new strategies. I think there needs to be a stronger plan to protect inmates, to address the funding issue, to address the new jail, all of the challenges that he's facing, and obviously with the deaths. But I kind of agree with you, Phil, that I've not seen from the other candidates something better. I've not heard a better plan. I've not seen their ability to really come in and make the changes that are necessary. And so from the polling and what I'm seeing, I think he's going to win without a runoff, and hopefully he will go in with a renewed sense of how to change the direction of the jail.
Well, on to DeKalb CEO. No Republicans in that race, so that means the winner of the May 21st primary will be the new CEO. You have DeKalb County Commissioners Lorraine Cochran-Johnson, Steve Bradshaw, and Larry Johnson. Melita.
Well, they're having some very spirited debates. They're all showing up for, and I think it's going to be a neck-and-neck battle that'll probably go to a runoff.
Janelle.
I like Lorraine. I know her. She and I have had conversations. What I like about her is that she's okay with us being able to disagree and still be able to be friends. And I like that I feel like she will put the county before personal feelings and emotions. And I think that's what you need, and that's the type of energy you need in a CEO.
All right, well, on to the 13th Congressional. Congressman David Scott is fending off several Democratic challengers, and some of his critics are pointing to the age of the 78-year-old incumbent. Alicia.
So David Scott was my congressman for a very long time, and I've moved since then, but also now, of course, the district has changed drastically. I don't like the comparison between David Scott and President Biden. Age is an important factor, but I think for me it's about being able to show up, it's about the energy, it's about the work that you're doing. Congressman Scott has had an impeccable record when it comes to constituent services. That's really, really important. Now, have I seen him in a while? I have not. Have I heard from members of the Congressional or members of Congress who are concerned about his performance in Congress? Yes. And so I do think there are some valid concerns. We're going to leave that up to the voters. But I think just age alone should not be the reason that people don't vote for the congressman or any other person.
Phil.
Well, now I'm starting to agree with you for once. But
how about that?
Yeah, I think David Scott has been pro-business. He was the head of the Agriculture Committee. I think that, yes, he is doing a very aggressive legislative agenda. He's voting, he's speaking out. As we discussed on the show last week, sometimes I like debates, but sometimes politically you don't have to do it. And I think as the incumbent, he's getting good advice. Don't do it, although I do like debates. I think he deserves at least one more term.
Melita?
Well, I think he's definitely not showing up. And I remember covering the General Assembly when he was at his prime as a state senator. There was nobody more eloquent and elegant and able to get a point across any better than him. But we haven't seen that side of David Scott in many years.
Janelle?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I don't think it's about age. I think it's about whether or not you have the energy and the ability to do the job. I know people that are over 70, like Ron Goodbub and them, that can run circles around us. So I don't want to make it about age. However, he's not showing up. He hasn't been doing much of anything, and his constituent services are ran by other people. So I think that he should pass the torch. I don't know to who, but I do think he should pass the torch.
All right, so Melita and Janelle agree.
I know.
And Alicia and Phil agree. So I think it's a good show.
That?
I think it's a good show.
I have to rethink my position.
We're making history today.
Up next, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is not giving up in her fight to oust House Speaker Mike Johnson.
Join the discussion on the Georgia Gang Facebook page and watch past episodes on the Georgia Gang YouTube channel.
Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene says she plans to force a vote on the ouster of House Speaker Mike Johnson this week. Janelle, I doubt she'll be successful on this one. What's your take?
Okay, so people often ask me, and I know Alicia asked me this morning too, I hope you don't mind me saying that, but asked me what I thought about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I said, I like Marjorie, I don't like MTG. I don't know who this person is, his character. I want the businesswoman Marjorie to come out. I want her to get on a committee. I want her to push policy and do that. However, if this is what her base and her district wants from her, then she's representing them, and she's representing them well. So I almost feel like we kind of have to leave her to the side. The problem I have with this ousting is that I heard that the Democrats said that they would save him if she was to put this vote up, which then will cause the same Republicans that are supporting her to turn and say that, see, Mike Johnson is a Democrat. He does listen to the Democrats. And now we're back into chaos and fighting. So I really want this to end, and I want her to go back to just being Marjorie.
Melita?
Well, I believe her behavior is increasingly living up to those howler monkey memes that were created after she yelled at President Biden during the 2023 State of the Union speech wearing a furry collar. She is single-handedly making Democratic Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries the most powerful person in Congress because she is making him the shadow speaker. He now decides, so long as she has this sword of Damocles hanging over the titular speaker's head, she is making Hakeem Jeffries all the more powerful.
Phil?
Well, I would make 2 points. Number one, there's nothing wrong with Republicans, and the Democrats do it too in their own caucus, trying to push their leadership, in this case to the right, and then in the Democrats to the left. I do think, though, that as a representative, you need to figure out what you're going to do. Are you going to represent your district, or are you going to just, this is me, this is what I believe in, vote for me or don't vote for me? So she's got to decide that, and she also has to understand the math. I think this is the wrong time to do it. You only have a 2-vote majority right now as Republicans, so she needs to fold her tent and fight again another day.
Alicia, quickly.
Amen, brother.
Y'all agreed twice today.
Twice. And it speaks volumes, right? If Janelle and Phil and even Donald Trump don't agree with this, why are you still pursuing this? Right. Janelle, I have the great misfortune of being one of her constituents. She is now my congressman. And I am disappointed and frustrated to have arguably the most divisive political figure in our history right now, in our recent history, as my congresswoman. This is not the fight that she should have. There are so many other issues that she should focus her attention on. And so I just want her to stop being so divisive and just shh.
All right, well, another huge milestone for Georgia Power. The second of 2 nuclear reactors in Georgia has entered commercial production at Plant Vogtle. But the carbon-free energy comes with a pretty hefty price. Phil?
Well, I think we ought to remember one thing in Georgia. This is great for our diversified energy portfolio. We've got clean, safe nuclear power with this new Unit 4 coming on commercial operation. We are not going to have the rolling blackouts that some of these other states have that have gone, attacking the natural gas or even nuclear and oil. So we're in good shape. Sadly, the rest of the country is not. And with President Biden trying to destroy the gas and oil industry, we are in great position. So I'm happy. I know it's going to come at a price. Yes, you're right. But I think in the long run, we're going to have energy stability for the next 80 years.
Alicia?
Yeah, it's funny. When I was in the legislature, I actually voted against this. My constituents were very much against it. Now, 10, 12 years later, I definitely understand the value that we have in terms of nuclear power. I appreciate Georgia Power's commitment to have this, our footprint, what is it called?
Carbon footprint?
Carbon footprint, thank you, be reduced to 0. They're very much ahead of schedule by 2030. And so I think there's some good and bad. This is a very expensive project, but I do think in terms of the impact that it's going to make in providing energy for decades, I think is very, very important.
All right, I want to get to one more topic because a sit-in rally held at Georgia Southern as some students and faculty are protesting the cancellation of a program aimed at reducing discrimination against the LGBTQ community. And the university's president said the program called Safe Space no longer conformed to state education policy. Melita, we were talking earlier that this was good trouble, right? It was a peaceful sit-in rally, no violence, no nothing. It was just peaceful.
Well, and I think it shows how college students can and should protest everywhere. But I don't like that the university has discontinued this program that's meant to alleviate discrimination against LGBTQ students.
Janelle?
I don't know. I wasn't in the backroom conversations to determine why that happened. I have ideas, but I don't want to theorize what I think. However, I do believe they have the right to protest. Like I said, they have the right to do it peacefully. I do think that when you don't have Antifa involved or grown people flying in from other states to come and protest with you, this is what you'll get.
Phil, quickly?
Well, I think that everybody's not in favor of discrimination. In fact, that's the policy of the university system, obviously. The part of this program that ought to be concerning to everybody is the oppressor versus the oppressed part of this diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's the problem. That's not part of the university system of Georgia. It didn't conform with the policy of the university system of Georgia, and that's why it's gone.
All right, we'll wrap it there, guys. Thank you. Coming up, winners and losers. Stay tuned.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
All right, Janelle, we'll start with you.
Thank you. All right, this week is Correctional Officers Week. So congratulations and shout out to all the correctional officers that work with the state. I also want to announce that I started a series, Candidate Conversations, on my podcast, The Janelle King Show. I interview Robert Patillo. So I'm interviewing Democrats and Republicans who are running for office. Commissioner Tricia Pridemore, I just dropped that one. So go to my YouTube page, The Janelle King Show. Lastly, shout out to Ashley Henson, who I just interviewed. He's running for sheriff in Fulton County. To Beth and Rob, congratulations on your wedding. And shout out to Inez, who is the mother of Susan and Amy, as well as last shout out to Cobb Veterans Memorial Foundation Dinner. You did a great job, and please consider supporting the Cobb Veterans Memorial Fund.
Sounds good. You said you had 3. Okay,
I
Melita.
know. I had to loop in last week.
As we tape on Friday, we don't know the outcome of the Kentucky Derby, but the Atlantans who form West Paces Racing, including Keith Mason, who was the former chief of staff for Governor Zell Miller, it was a win to have 2 horses in the 20-horse field of the Derby. Mother's Day is just around the corner, and my friend since college, Mary Kay Andrews, has a new book out, Summers at the Saint.
Hold that up a little bit.
Set along the Georgia coast at something loosely based on the cloister, where you're either a saint or an ain't. And then the Pulitzer Prizes will be awarded on Monday. And frankly, if Mike Lukovich does not win a Pulitzer this year, he hasn't had one since 2006, the selection committee are on my losers list.
All right, Bill.
Well, I've got a winner, and it's Don Leeburn Jr. He was one of the longest-serving members of the Board of Regents. He was chairman one time. Huge philanthropist. He was a great supporter of the University of Georgia, my alma mater. He will be missed. And also a shout-out to 2 candidates, one running for the Supreme Court, Andrew Pinson. This is a statewide race, and Jeff Davis for Court of Appeals. It's a statewide race. These are the ones that actually are constitutionalists.
We'll talk about those races next week.
Happy birthday, Senator Donzella James. And my winners, Governors Kemp and Governors Barnes, for coming together to support Judge McAfee in a bipartisan fundraiser this week. Go bipartisanship.
All right, we'll leave it there. Have a great week, folks. See you next time.